all, one and all. And just want to thank to Gunjan, who has taken initiative and connected with me and wanted to do something great for you guys. All credit to Film Society, Gunjan team, and Carrios team, which later on I connected with two of my kids with them. Thank you very much, Gunjan, Kavya, and Sanjana, and Abhyuday, obviously, and others who were associated with Gunjan. Who can be better than Dr. Munsi to start the session? So, over to you, Dr. Munsi. We would like your views on the session, and then it can start. Over to you, Dr. Munsi.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's going to be really an exciting session. And I know my students, and now I'm going to explore the other students here as well. And I can promise, guys, that it's going to be really a rocking session. The pop culture. I'm also going to experience it. I'm just waiting for it. Let's see. Yes, Sanjana is our really star student. So Sanjana, all the best. Go ahead.
A very good evening and a very warm welcome to everyone attending this first session in this four-part series, which aims to show you that all chemistry can be one of the most interesting of sciences if we approach it in the right way. This session has been titled Does It Matter? And today's session will be about pop culture in chemistry. This series happens to be a collaboration between the Chemistry Society from Shiv Nadar University and Carrios from Shiv Nadar School. Shiv Nadar University has given us the forum to explore our interests above and beyond the courses and degrees. It allowed us to establish various societies and clubs of like minded people, giving us opportunities to attend and host various events like the one we are today. And we would really like to thank the university for giving us the space to do that. I'm Sanjana Maheshwari from the Chemistry Society, and along with me, we have Kavya Koche from Shiv Nadar School. And we cannot proceed without thanking the mentors from Carriers, Ms. Upasna Mittal, Ms. Anamika ma'am, and Dr. Mayank sir. We would also like to introduce and thank the mentors from Shiv Nadar University, Dr. Bimlesh Lochev and Dr. Parth Pratim Munshi.
Before we start, let me introduce the ethos of Team Carriers, which is a cross-campus science society that believes to maximize the outreach of students, faculty of Shiv Nadar schools, Vidyagyan, Shiv Nadar University, and members of Shiv Nadar Foundation. This society is working diligently to enable, on a mass scale, the interaction among students and faculties from grade 6 all the way up to undergraduate college level.
Yes, Gunjan. Please go ahead.
We will be present. So today we will be presenting the connection between pop culture and chemistry with the focus on toxins. We aim to show you all how different substances that are portrayed as harmful in pop culture work in real life, and we'll also discuss about ways to reverse the damage they can cause. We hope you understand how chemistry is utilized in movies, TV shows, and popular literature. In today's session, we'll be basically covering, first of all, we'll start with the reason behind Black Panther's power, and then we'll be discussing 5 famous toxins, their antidotes, if any, and how they work, with an ending on what we aim to make everyone understand from today's session is that everything can be toxic, it all depends on the dosage. Over to you, Kavya.
Before we begin, we decided that it would be a good idea to kind of get to know each other a little better and have a little interaction. And for that, we have designed a small Kahoot quiz. It's a tiny Kahoot quiz, and I'm just going to quickly explain you how Kahoot works. It is basically a platform where we have yeah, it is basically a platform where we have questions and answers, and it's a quiz. It's an interactive quiz with a very competitive leaderboard. And all you have to do is I'll screen share and you'll get a code presented on the screen. The website Gunjan presented in chat, you have to go to your phone or you have to go to another device if you have any, or just open another tab on your screen and type kahoot.it, kahoot.it. And then you'll have an option of showing a game pin, and I'll be showing the game pin right now. So as soon as you type kahoot.it, you enter the game pin and you enter the game. So you can officially take part in the quiz once you've entered Kahoot. And the questions will be shown on my screen, the screen that I'm presenting, and the answers you have to type on your own screen, the one that you'll have in your hand, the one where you'll be having your answers. All right, so this is the Kahoot quiz. So when you go and type Kahoot.id, something like this should show up, if you can see my screen. And then there's an option for a game pin where you just type the game pin, which is 249008, and you press enter. You get an option of having your nickname. And
if anyone is struggling, feel free to raise your hand. We can help you out right away. Is there anyone who wasn't able to join? It would be really nice if you can raise your hand. We can help you out. Kavya, I think everyone has joined besides obviously Vinita ma'am and
all
Sid.
right, so if there's no one else who wants to join, we'll begin with the quiz. All questions will be on the screen once again, and answers will be on your phone, so you need to type out the answers. I made the quiz, so I would be giving all wrong answers, and that will be unfair. We need all of you to answer before 20 seconds. Yes, so it's not, spider silk is not a fiber, it's a form of protein that spiders release. So on top of the leaderboard, we have Gunjan. Gunjan, this is unfair. All right. Moving
Sorry.
on. I am pretty sure Gunjan will learn not to type answers now. Yeah, it's acetone. You have nail polish, like you have acetone in nail polish, and acetone is volatile. That is why nail polish you have to stuff. Why am I there? Okay, that's why you have to stuff in nail polish removers. Okay, it wasn't DT. It was Men in Black, and even though it's not a personal favorite. We have Pahul with a winning streak on top, and then we have Siddhi, Mitiksha, Ranvijay, and why am I there? I'm not even playing, but all right. If you get this right, I will have immense respect, just letting you know.
Why is the answer already given? Like, obviously.
You see, it's not that obvious. Okay, one person got it right, and it is gold alloy. It's actually gold and titanium alloy, which is myself the last thing I would have expected. All right. All right, okay, that is smart. Yes, it is in fact CERN, and the picture was of the Large Hadron Collider, which is a particle accelerator. Basically, you smash particles at very high speed. It's not neutralization. Please don't say neutralization. I can understand the confusion between fission and fusion, but it's not neutralization. All right. It is nuclear fusion. Two hydrogen atoms come together and form a helium atom, which releases a lot of energy. Okay, on top we have Brijesh. This is last question. Okay. Hulk was turned into a green giant by exposure to high energy photons. True or false? True, high energy photons is light. Gamma rays is a form of light and it has high energy. So, yes, Hulk was in fact turned into a green giant using high energy photons. Let's see who's winning. On third position, we have Siddhi. Congratulations. Then Pahul. And then we have Brijesh. Awesome. Congratulations. Runner-up are Vitiksha, if I'm pronouncing her name correct, and Ranvijay. Thank you so much for playing. Now we'll come back to the topic that we was coming to discuss in the first place, which was pop culture and chemistry. I'll be screen sharing my PPT with you in a second, and then we'll go ahead with that. Okay, can everyone see this? I want all of you, whenever I ask a question, all of you feel free to unmute and like tell me your answers, but try to keep it civil, try to not make it into a fish market. And now we'll be going ahead. And before we go ahead, if you remember, the first thing that we're going to be discussing is the reason behind Black Panther's power. And I know it's a kind of confusing question because there are a lot of reasons behind his power, and especially because he could in himself be strong. So I'm going to give you a small hint of what his power could be, and which is in this clip right here. I want you to pay attention and then tell me what the power you could be. All right. Okay. Quickly, raise your hands or just speak up. What do you think based on this clip? Yes.
I think his suit absorbs the kinetic energy when he gets hit, and then using that kinetic energy absorbed by the suit, he uses it back to hit the person like more powerfully.
That makes sense. Yes. We have people raising their hands. Speak up, guys. Don't raise your hand. I can't see a lot of people raising their hands. Sanjana? Is that Sanjana Kosa?
Yes. So bullets were being shooted on him, and the kinetic energy that he gained from that was used to charge his suit and use it back again over them.
All right, quick Marvel trivia. Because of years of my extensive research by binging on Marvel movies, I expect all of you to tell me the material with which the suit is made of. Because essentially it's the suit with the power. Good. So the root of Black Panther's power is actually vibranium. And what we'll be discussing right now is vibranium. So vibranium is mythological, like not a mythological, it is a material in the mythos of Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is found in Wakanda, which has the largest deposit of vibranium. That is why Wakanda is so advanced and it has like all sort of cool technology and things like that. And vibranium is described as something found in meteors and originating from an alien source. So we don't have anything quite like that on Earth, but then we'll be looking into things that are a little bit similar. What it is best known for is having the ability to absorb and diffuse vibrations, like Sanjana also mentioned, and the person before Sanjana also mentioned, that it's taking in bullets and it's absorbing that energy and then it's releasing that energy. So it absorbs vibrations, It is near impenetrable, like bullets are being shot at it and it's not getting through. So it's near impenetrable. It is incredibly dense and it is unbelievably sharp. And now when there are such great great fictional materials, considering that the real world has an intimate relationship with friction and that art often imitates life and vice versa, a question that is very common often comes up is that what materials can stand up to this fictional metal? And while there is nothing quite discovered from an alien source right here with us, there are a few materials that can match certain properties of vibranium, and we'll be looking into that a little bit. All right, so what materials are like vibranium? And in the picture, you can see it's Steve Rogers because his shield was also made up of vibranium. And because all of its indestructible things, it also makes Captain America's shield such a good weapon for defense. So there are 5 types of materials that I figured out that are similar to vibranium. The first one is called Basotect, which is a very cool thing. It came up in 1979 in Germany, and it was formed to be a good insulator. And that insulator would essentially help with the oil crisis and use less energy. What they did was, it is a polymer. It is basically made up of large chunks of material, like bubble-like material. And what it also did was, if you put sound on Basotect, Basotect could stop that sound right there. So sound would not go through Basotect. Sound is a form of energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. So what actually happens to that sound? What happens to that sound? It actually gets trapped in the bubbles of Basotect, and those bubbles wiggle about and they release it as heat. So just how for vibranium, you take bullets and the kinetic energy of bullets, like 2 of you mentioned, turns into a shock wave at the end when the car flips, Basotect takes in sound waves and converts it into thermal energy. Similarly, there are piezoelectric materials which take in stress or magnetic pressure, and it changes the materialistic property and it releases electricity. Similarly, sonoluminescent, sono means sound, luminescent means light. So they take in sound, give out light. And like in the first question of the quiz, spider silk, which is considered to be equally as strong as steel, has incredible tensile strength and it's very flexible. So Basotect has the converting from one energy to another property. Similarly for piezoelectric and sonoluminescent, spider silk has the tensile strength of Black Panther's suit. Then we're going to talk about something very interesting. It's called graphene. Okay, I think all of you might have a pencil around you. The tip of the pencil, you know, okay, what is the tip of the pencil made up of?
Graphite.
It is made up of graphite. And I don't expect everyone to know what graphite looks like. So here is a tiny diagram. So if you like use very strong microscope and you zoom in into this, this is how a graphite looks like. Graphene and graphite are structurally identical. They are 2-dimensional sheets of carbon joined together in covalent bonds, and 6 carbon atoms are joined together in hexagonal shape. You can see the shape is of a hexagon, so that's how carbon binds together for graphene. Graphene is like sheets, and it is a single one atom thick sheet, so it is very thin. And it is also the strongest material we know. It is so strong that it is said that in order to puncture a sheet, the thickness of a plastic wrap, you know, plastic wrap, those thin, flimsy plastic films you used to cover food, especially in like our school's dining hall. And in order to just puncture a sheet that thin, you need pressure equivalent to an elephant balanced on a pencil. So it is incredibly strong. And also it is a carbon allotrope. What is an allotrope? Allotrope is a different form of the same element. So like there is carbon in graphite and there is carbon in diamonds, but both diamond and graphite look very different. Like the tip of your pencil looks so much different than, I don't know, the jewelry your mom has. So these are all different forms of graphite. Also, so we know that nothing in our world right now is quite as beautiful and incredible as vibranium, but graphene is as close as we get when it comes to structure. Also, another cool observation that I made was this. All right, so we know that vibranium can store energy. Vibranium stored energy of bullets, and vibranium like release that energy with the whoosh when the car kind of flips over. But vibranium's ability to store energy is limited. So when bullets were shot, it's elastic, bullets rebound, energy is stored. But if you hit it with too much energy at once, like in the clip, when Thor's hammer hit the shield, all of the kinetic energy it has is released all at once. So there's a very big shockwave. And you saw how Thor flied over to the other side. That is the amount of energy it had trapped inside its bonds that it released just then, which I found pretty cool. Okay, another thing. I want you to pay attention to this next one. Okay. Talking of Captain America and talking of all his things, one of my favorite movies that come, I like all Marvel movies, by the way, but one of my favorite movies that come to my mind is Captain America First Avenger. And particularly that scene right after he gets turned into Captain America with those injections and fancy lighting things. And he decides to chase the Nazi spy. There is something very interesting that happens at that time. And I want you to tell me what you see.
Who the hell are you? The first of many. Cut off one head. Two more shall take its place. Hail, Hydra.
All right, so what do you think happened? How did he die so fast?
He got exposed to a poison.
What poison do you think it would be?
It could be. I don't.
Make a random guess. What poisons do you know of?
Kavya, since we're running short on time, let's just.
All right, we can move ahead.
Yeah.
It was true. Yes, it is in fact a poison. And the poison that it actually was cyanide. And cyanide is a poison that we see in a lot of movies, and we see it being overused. Okay, and we see it being overused everywhere throughout the fictional realm and real life, unfortunately. Cyanide is a chemical compound that contains the group carbon and nitrogen covalently bonded with 3 bonds. This group is known as the cyano group. It's a little complicated terminology, you don't need to pay too much attention to it. So cyanide group is represented with the anion Cn negative. Anion is basically an ion which has a negative charge. And there are soluble cyanide salts such as sodium cyanide and potassium cyanide, which are very toxic. That's what they use as poisons. But if you try to like sit in the chemistry lab once and if you look at the bottles closely, there is something called as potassium ferrocyanide, which are there in a lot of labs. That is in fact not as toxic. So the toxicity varies when it comes to cyanide compounds. How does cyanide kill a person? Cyanide affects our blood's ability to carry oxygen and our cells' ability to use it. So let's consider that our blood is a bus, and all the red blood cells that carry oxygen to our other cells that respire. You know, respiration is a process that releases energy, and respiration is where we actually use our oxygen. So that bus, which is our blood, takes in that oxygen to the cells. And now the bus has limited seats because we have limited red blood cells. And on a regular day, oxygens come and take place in the seat, and they go ahead and they go to the respective cells, and it's all very happy. However, when cyanide comes, cyanide has glue stuck on their backside. So when they come and they sit on the seat, they can't leave. They are stuck to the seat. So in the bus, there are cyanides that are filling up the seat, and there is limited space for oxygen. So when oxygen tries to come up, there is a very less amount of oxygen that can fit in the bus. So cells get less oxygen because less oxygen can go. Oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is reduced, and it leads to a disease called hypoxia, which means that your body is not getting enough oxygen. All right. So this is one way it can kill you. Another way is that for respiration to take place, you need oxygen. And what do you do with oxygen? Look at the 4th slide right over here. What do you do with oxygen? You add hydrogen to oxygen and you make water. This reaction is made faster by an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase. All right, it's a complicated name. It's just an enzyme. It basically helps them come together.
I think we can give this for read up because it's already 6:30. So let's move to the next one.
All right. Okay, I'll just wrap it up in one sentence. Essentially, what happens is that cyanide comes and it kills that enzyme. So our cells don't produce energy, and when you don't give food to a human, like a human, that human dies. Similarly, when you don't give food to a cell, that cell dies. So your body essentially dies with a series of systemic failures because you can't have enough energy. All right, moving on. I just need two answers. What celebrity do you think this is? No clue. All right, okay. This is Kylie Jenner. She is on Instagram. Okay, I got a hand raised. Okay, too late. This is Kylie Jenner. She's a celebrity influencer. And you see this, the first picture is her as a teenager, and the second picture is of her in her 20s. And you can see the difference, and you can see how her face structure is so much different all throughout those ages. What chemical do you think might be at work here? What difference do you see? Yes.
I can see that all the wrinkles are not there.
Yes, okay. So all the wrinkles are not there, and wrinkles are formed by muscles. And so the muscles have been made weaker. That happens using a chemical known as Botox. So Botox is a drug that weakens or paralyzes muscles. And in very small diluted doses, it can reduce skin wrinkles and help treat some medical condition. Botox is a toxin, but when doctors use it correctly and in small doses, it can have benefits in both cosmetic and medical fields. So Botox can be good and Botox can be bad. And the Botox that we use right now is in such diluted doses because just to give you an idea of how toxic Botox can actually be, you need 2.4 to 4.8 nanograms to kill a person. Nanograms is 10 to the power negative 9 grams. So that means in just a few kilograms of Botox, you could eliminate the entire human population. A US company called Allegron decided to, because Botox is used for cosmetic surgeries, like you saw for the case of Kylie Jenner, the company said that it only needs 1 gram of Botox to fulfill the world's requirement of cosmetic surgery and medicinal uses. Only 1 gram. That is how incredibly toxic it can be. And so Botox, like somebody pointed out, Botox essentially paralyzes your muscles for a bit, but then how exactly does it kill you? It paralyzes muscles. So we have cells, we have all sorts of cells in our body. And one of the cells that we have are nerve cells. And what do nerve cells do? They send messages along electrical impulses throughout our body. And what Botox does is that Botox tries to interfere in those electrical impulses. It doesn't let those electrical impulses go. So if it's like, if your nerves are like, I want to make muscles move so that you can breathe, and then Botox is like, no, I'm not going to let the muscles move. So basically, the muscles that help you breathe stop because Botox is not letting them move, and that is how people die out of Botox overdose due to respiratory failure. So this is how Botox can actually be that toxic. Now we'll be moving on to different types of toxins, and Sanjana is going to take over.
Alright, so the next toxin that we'll be discussing has been featured in one of the most popular chemistry-based shows that happens to be Breaking Bad, and it's called ricin. And one interesting thing about ricin is that it comes from the same source from where we get a relatively harmless substance called castor oil. So ricin is found in the seeds of the castor plant. And ricin is a protein. And all proteins can be denatured if they're heated beyond a certain temperature. So one can consume the seeds of the castor plant simply by cooking them because that denatures ricin. Now we'll understand how ricin affects the human body and why is it toxic. For a very long time, it is considered to be the perfect poison because it used to be untreatable and untraceable. So the ricin protein is made up of two chains, chain A and chain B. What chain B does is it goes and attacks the cell and kind of breaks it open. And then the chain A enters the cell. Now, cells have ribosomes, which essentially control the functioning and the repair of the cell. So, what chain A does is it causes the ribosome to become inactive. And it's not like one molecule of chain A will make one ribosome inactive. A single chain A molecule can actually deactivate 1,500 ribosomes per minute. It is that toxic. So once the ribosomes are inactive, the cell cannot repair itself, and essentially human organs start failing because there are no cells to repair themselves. They cannot function, and everything stops. So that's how ricin kills you. As of now, there is no known antidote to ricin, but there happens to be a vaccine which can be effective for few months. So what basically that vaccine consists of is an inactive form of chain A, which is introduced into the body. It stays for few months before it is removed by the body and has to be administered again. Now, before talking about arsenic, I'd like to ask two questions. Number one, if anyone knows of any famous deaths due to arsenic that happened. And secondly, has anyone heard of any medicine, especially in the recent times, being prescribed that has arsenic in it?
Someone named Napoleon died
That,
from us.
that's right. Napoleon died due to arsenic poisoning. And the second one, in the recent times, has anyone heard of any medicine being made of arsenic? Or you could tell me what it was prescribed for. All right, so the medicine that I'm talking about is a homeopathic medicine called arsenic album 30, and it is prescribed as a preventive drug for COVID-19 virus. So we'll be talking about arsenic. Now, arsenic has been known to be the poison of the kings and the king of poisons. As we just noted from the example, Napoleon was killed due to arsenic poisoning, and so the poison is associated with a lot of royalty and kinds of. So, arsenic, the element itself, is not very toxic, as are its compounds. And the effect they cause is due to their structure. So, we'll be talking about how arsenic compounds, such as arsenic trioxide or potassium arsenide, affect humans. So, arsenic compounds occur with two structures, arsenides and arsenates. So, as you can see on the slide, a structure of arsenate has been shown. Now, this happens to be very similar to phosphate. The structure of phosphate is simply removing the arsenic atom from the structure and putting phosphorus in there. That's phosphate. That's how similar they are. So, our body is not able to distinguish between the two. Now, and we know that phosphates are present a lot in our body. For example, the DNA backbone is made up of phosphates, or even in ATP molecules, which are required for energy, that also have phosphates. What arsenic compounds do is this arsenate replaces the phosphate in those structures, and it is less reactive. So it essentially causes the chemical reactions it is a part of to slow down and come to a halt, and thus our body cannot carry out the essential chemical reactions. The second kind of compound is an arsenide. Now, what an arsenide does is arsenide interferes with enzyme mechanism. So, our body, to carry out the chemical reactions for functioning, uses biological catalysts called enzymes. So, enzymes function with a lock and key mechanism. So, there's an enzyme of a particular shape, and then there's a substrate of a particular shape, and they fit together, just like a lock fits into a key. So, what this arsenide does is it binds to sulfur really strongly and distorts the shape of the enzyme. For example, if the enzyme was shaped this way, it will maybe become this way. And the substrate cannot fit in the enzyme anymore, and the chemical reactions come to a halt again. So, as of now, there are two known antidotes to arsenic. The first one happens to be activated charcoal, but it will only work if it is taken in immediately after one has been administered with arsenic. And the second one is any kind of chelating agent. What a chelating agent does is, so if this is the arsenic compound, the chelating agent will bind to it and prevent it from disrupting the chemical reaction. Now we come to the final toxin that we'll be talking about, and this toxin in particular highlights what we have been wanting to tell you. That is that everything is toxic, but dose matters. So, does anyone know the use of belladonna these days, or any guesses on the use of belladonna? All right, so belladonna has been associated with Indian medicine for a very long time. So this plant, the flower, the plant that has been shown here, it belongs to the same family as tomatoes and potatoes. So what belladonna has is the component called atropine. Now this atropine happens to be toxic. Why? Because it interferes with the human nervous system and interferes with the functioning of it, and thus it is very toxic. And there's no known antidote to it. But belladonna is used a lot in medicines, especially in eye examinations. A very diluted form of atropine is used to dilate the pupil so that eye examinations can be carried out perfectly. So, this basically shows that anything can be toxic, the dose matters. So, with that, can anyone guess the toxic dosage of water? What dose of water do you have to consume so that it becomes toxic to someone? Can anyone guess the toxic amount of water?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, you have to guess the toxic dosage of water, the dose of water, the amount of water which is required to make it toxic or make it harmful to you. Yeah, whoever has raised their hand, please go ahead. Please speak up.
I think none at all, because drinking no amount of water can eventually kill you.
Not really. There happens to be an amount which can actually kill you. Any other guesses, please?
When we drink 3 to 4 liters of water in like an hour.
Okay, I'll say that's less. Any other guesses?
I think we have Arav raising his hand. Arav, go ahead.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually searched it on Google right now. So I actually didn't find the exact answer, but I read an article that a teenager who drank over than 7.5 liters of water had brain swelling and died. So I guess above 7.5 liters causes a person to die.
That is the correct answer. 7 liters of water taken continuously at once can actually cause a person to die. That happens to be toxic dosage of water. So, as we can understand from the question about the toxic dosage of water, any substance, the one which we essentially considered harmless, can be toxic too, but it's the amount, it's the dose that matters. And dosage is what makes a lot of toxins useful for medical purposes, as I discussed about belladonna or even arsenic in the recent times. Okay. Another noteworthy point here is that a lot of toxins we mentioned do not have an antidote. Okay. This opens up the possibilities of this field being vast, in which you can discover antidotes to daily toxins. And all of these studies come under the work done by a toxicologist, a scientist who studies the toxins and their effects. It is a vast domain, and what we cover today is an extremely small part of that. And for young people who are interested more in toxicology, the path starts with studying chemistry and understanding the workings and interactions of different molecules with each other. And with this, we'd like to conclude our first session of the Does It Matter series, and we are open to any questions now.
All right, seeing that we don't seem to have questions anymore, I would just like to come in and let you know that this was the first session, like Sanjana said, of the 4 session series. And the second session for the certificate course is coming up on 5th August, which is on evolving energy. And I encourage all of you to take part in it. And I think I'm pretty sure you're going to learn something